Well, let's go live to our correspondent, John Huddy, for the very latest, who is there in Geneva. John, fill us in.
Yeah, well, Rita, the U.S. and Chinese delegations are currently meeting behind me here, just down the road, at the Swiss ambassador to the UN residence. There seems to be some movement. Not sure what's going on, if the meetings have wrapped up. But the U.S. delegation, of course, led by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and also U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer. The Chinese delegation, led by the country's Vice Premier He Lifeng, also described as the country's basically economic czar. So these are, without, obviously it goes without saying, high-level and very important meetings that have been happening throughout the day. Bessent said earlier this week that really the focus of the talks would be on de-escalation, a de-escalation of the tensions between both countries having to do with the ongoing tariff battle. But that said, we are not expecting any major breakthrough from the talks this weekend. The hope, however, Rita, is that the U.S. and China will basically scale back the massive tariffs. On that point, President Trump posted these messages on his Truth Social on Friday, writing China should open up its market to USA, would be so good for them. Closed markets don't work anymore. And then later, he posted another message saying 80% tariff on China seems right, up to Scott B., again, referring to the Treasury Secretary. On Friday, Swiss President Keller-Sutter, who also serves as Switzerland's finance minister, met with both the Chinese and U.S. delegations. She said that talks with Bessent were, quote-unquote, disappointing. They did not result in the removal of the 31% tariff, U.S. tariff on Swiss goods. But that said, the Swiss president said she was also encouraged that a deal could be reached, adding this. Take a listen.
I said to Secretary Bessent that apparently the Holy Spirit was in Rome yesterday, and I hope that he will come to Geneva over the weekend.
Now, perhaps that's what's needed in the ongoing U.S.-Chinese talks. Today, regarding the Swiss talks, the Treasury Department put out a press release reading in part that the Secretary was pleased to follow up on his earlier discussions with the Swiss delegation, and then it goes on to say, and agreed with Swiss counterparts to accelerate negotiations on reciprocal trade. So, Rita, it's certainly possible that what we could see coming out of the talks this weekend is maybe a U.S.-Swiss deal, but that remains to be seen as we continue to follow the talks between the U.S. and Chinese delegations. Rita.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.